financial affairs.
Amen.
Why do I say that? In 2001, I mean, we had $250 billion surpluses. We were talking about paying off our national debt. And I've often thought what a tremendous legacy that would have been from the baby boom generation to the next generation had we left our country in sort of a debt-free situation. It would have been the most important thing we could do to secure Medicare and Social Security for the baby boom generation. And what did we do? I mean, we flipped everything upside down again. We've added more than 1/3 of our nation's entire debt that is accumulated since the Revolutionary War, since 2001. Unbelievable. And as a result, we have driven down the value of the dollar to the lowest level ever. And what does that do? That drives up the price of oil and gasoline and everything that we're importing. And we're importing way too much of everything as far as I'm concerned. But I have been telling people that one of the most important things we can do to get down the price of gasoline is to restore the value of the dollar. And the way we do that is to get control of our nation's financial affairs again. So all of this stuff is interrelated. And then we're off into this war in Iraq, which is now we are learning was based on very faulty intelligence data and based on some enormously naive assumptions. And you know, the whole notion that we could deploy a predominantly Christian army into the land of Islam and to try and preside over these warring factions that have been at each other's throats for 1,000 years. I mean, to think we can solve that problem, I mean, my goodness. So, you know, we've lost 4,000 men and women there. We are spending $12 billion a month. We're going to spend $1 trillion in Iraq before this thing is over, if we're lucky. It may be twice that much. And the people who led us in to this war that we did not need to fight, in my judgment, should be held to account. This is just breathtaking incompetence. And we as citizens have a duty, in my opinion, to hold people to account. If our leaders make bad judgments, incompetent judgments, and if we don't hold them to account, we're going to get more incompetence. And that's why we have to hold these people to account. On energy policy, here we have $4 down gallon gasoline. The federal government, again, has failed to require the automakers in this country to produce more fuel-efficient automobiles. So I was up in Kansas City the other night, and I was at an event where they were honoring the chairman of General Motors Company, a nice guy, in Fairfax plant in downtown Kansas City. We're producing the car of the year, the Malibu. It's a beautiful car. And he was talking about it, and it is a beautiful car. I like it. I'd like to buy one of them, and I'd encourage you all to buy one of them. They're made in Kansas, okay? But what is interesting about it is he was bragging about the fact that this automobile is making 24 miles to the gallon. Well, I hate to report to you all, but a Prius is out there, a Japanese-made Prius, makes 48 miles to the gallon, and it's a very nice car. It costs a few dollars more, not much more than that Malibu. But I told him afterwards, I said, why don't General Motors just take the Prius and basically modify it a little bit and try to produce an American-made version of the Prius? Get it out to the people of this country, and let's think not in terms of 24 miles to the gallon, let's think in terms of 48 miles to the gallon. It's out there, it's available, the technology's out there, we should be producing cars, and don't tell me it's going to take 5 years to do it. You know, I just don't believe that. My goodness, in World War II, right here in Wichita, Kansas, we designed the B-29, you know, from scratch and got it into the airs of over the Pacific in 18 months, you know. And, you know, we've got to have that same spirit, I think, working for us again. And it's absent. It's absent. So, you know, and when I look at the Roberts record, and it's important that we do this, you know, Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee was the most important member of the United States Senate in the lead up to the war in Iraq. And I'm telling Pat, I don't know what in the world happened in your committee. All I know is that the outcome was bad, that the intelligence was wrong, and then he blocked and really did everything he could to delay the very important investigations to determine how this administration used the intel data that they had. We've been led to believe that the intel data was all faulty. I'm not for sure of that. The intel data may have been not near as faulty as we've been led to believe. What was faulty is what our political leaders did with the intel that they were provided. Now you might say, well, why is he saying that? You know, I found it very interesting that the president gave George Tenet, the director of the CIA, listen to this, he presided over 9/11 and the lead up to the war in Iraq, and the president gave him the Congressional Medal of Freedom. That is the highest award you can give a civilian. Now tell me, you wouldn't give that to somebody if you weren't satisfied with his work, presumably, would you? You know, and you know, so I don't think that we've gotten to the bottom of that. But I think as we go forward in Iraq, well, you know, we have responsibilities there. We're going to have to get out responsibly as quickly as we can. I don't know whether that's going to be months or it may take a few years, but I reject the notion that we should stay there indefinitely. So these are some of the things that are motivating me, and all of this stuff, you know, comes back to our pocketbooks. And this election, I believe, is going to be an election driven by the big issues. It's going to be driven by energy policy, it's going to be driven by economic policy, and it's going to be driven by what's going on in foreign policy. And people in Kansas are starting to connect the dots and realizing that these huge big issues are affecting their pocketbook big time.
Okay.
And they're going to vote, I think, accordingly. They're going to vote for change. Let me just conclude by observing that this is a very winnable race. The Topeka Capital Journal had headlines on Sunday's paper this week saying Slattery closes gap with Roberts. And right now, Roberts is below 50%. In the last election, no Republican incumbent who fell below 50% got reelected. Not one. Okay? And we haven't spent a nickel advertising on radio or television yet. He's spent tens of thousands of dollars already, and he is stuck under 50%. We have moved up 10 points since we got into this thing. He's dropped 5. Okay, those are trend lines that are terrifying to the other side, and we are very confident that within a few, frankly, this race is where I thought it would be about the 1st of October. I thought we would be within 10 by the 1st of October.
I did
this
too,
would be a
if we were lucky.
sprint to the finish line, okay? We are within 10 today, and this race could be within 5 in the next 6 weeks by the primary time. And we have major commitments that indicate to us that this is a race that can be very well funded. But what I need is I need to get labor and the folks in this room and all over Kansas really actively involved in believing that this is a winnable race and taking your message out to the friends in the plants and in the facilities all over Wichita and central Kansas and all over Kansas. We can win this election. And if we do, I think we're going to send a powerful message to the nation that Kansas, red Kansas, wants change and is changing. Now I just want to tell you all that one last thing, and that is that I don't sit here today with the notion that I have all the answers to all these problems. I do not. What I'm committed to, though, is finding the best answers that we can possibly find. And I don't care where they come from. And I know in my heart and soul, and so do all of you, that we don't move this great country of ours forward in the right ditch or in the left ditch. Okay? We're going to move this country forward right down the middle of the road. We have to build solutions from the middle, bipartisan solutions that a huge majority of people will support, both in the citizenry and in the Congress of the United States. It's the only way we're going to solve these problems. That's what I'm committed to doing. And with your help, I'm confident we can win this election. Very confident.